part two now. So in the 70s, the NCAA was given power basically to punish schools for violating the amateurism rules. Now this became a really big sensitive point for university presidents, because you got to remember, university presidents have earned their credibility in academia. They have built their credibility, they have built programs, and now, you know, they have something that's an extracurricular activity, and the NCAA say, well, we're going to punish you for lack of institutional control here. And that tarnishes a president's reputation, and it still does today. So even back in the 70s, presidents were having a really big issue with the NCAA's power. Now, Byers, when he negotiated the first television contract, he basically said, well, we're going to restrict broadcasts of these football games because we do not want these television broadcasts to negatively impact attendance at games, because universities were basically, their main revenue source was attendance. So if attendance dropped, then that would impact athletic departments right there. So that was his basic goal. However, university presidents and board of regents, they were not happy with that, because they're saying, well, why are we limiting television here if it could be a source of a new source of revenue for us to fund our athletic department so we could be more profitable? So basically they did not like it, and they said, you know what, we're going to take the NCAA to court for football. So basically the court, so it was the NCAA versus Board of Regents. This case went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically ruled that the NCAA was in violation of the Sherman Act here back in 1985. So now football was allowed to broadcast as many games as they wanted to. Now this case right here was basically a landmark case. This basically started the explosion of revenues, of income that we see now with intercollegiate athletics, because athletics has now become a commercialization juggernaut here, okay? Conferences, you know, there are billions of dollars each year in the present that are coming into universities. So each university, which is part of a conference, like ASU is part of the Pac-12, there's the SEC, ACC, Big Ten, they all have individual television contracts. That brings in millions of dollars a year. In addition to that, college football recently started the college football playoff, and they have that with ESPN, and that brings in $7.4 billion that they negotiated over 12 years right there. In addition to that, you have bowl games, that brings in another source of revenue through there. You have collegiate licensing, where teams, where universities can negotiate with Nike, Under Armour, Reebok, Gatorade, Powerade, you name it. They can license things. And then you also have, for college basketball, men's college basketball, you have the biggest revenue generator, which is March Madness, which we're coming upon that now as we speak. And March Madness has become a big phenomenon in this country. I mean, people will get together in their offices to fill out brackets. I know I used to do that with my friends back in Miami there. So, and as you see here, Bloomberg came out with this just to show the NCAA men's basketball tournament, how valuable it is. So now, recently, they signed a 14-year deal that's worth $10.8 billion. That's that the NCAA negotiated for March Madness. So more money is coming into the system. And Forbes came out with this, they came out with an article, and this was a video that they were doing. I took a screenshot of this, showing the most valuable conferences. So as you notice, as I mentioned, the television contracts these conferences have. So the SEC right now is the most valuable conference. They're at $515 million that they bring every year, each school is making close to $37 million in the SEC. Big Ten, however, they're going to jump the SEC because they renegotiated their television contracts with Fox. So each school is going to potentially make about $40 million. So they're going to definitely jump the SEC. ACC actually is going to jump the Big 12 and Pac-12 because they just negotiated a new TV deal with ESPN right there. So they're going to jump up. Now the Big 12 and Pac-12, they're kind of lagging behind there. Pac-12 is actually where ASU is part of. Pac-12 was actually the original conference that went out and created their own TV network. Now the issue here is that they're not making as much money, even though they're the ones that started it, and the reason why is that they decided to go out on their own and do the TV network on their own versus partnering with ESPN or Fox or CBS, any one of those big networks here. So that's why they're kind of struggling with that, with distribution from that standpoint. Now, and as you notice here, as we continue, athletic departments, because of these the revenue that's coming in, like Texas A&M, they're in the SEC, they're the most valuable department in gross revenue. They're bringing in $192 million a year. Texas, another juggernaut, $183 million, right? Ohio State, 167. So these Michigan, these universities are printing paper right now. And then obviously, since they're making so much money, guess what? Hey, we gotta spend, if we want to have the best program, we have to have the best coaches, right? Ohio State is number 1, Kentucky number 2, Alabama number 3, Michigan number 4, right? If you associate Ohio State, Urban Meyer, right? One of the best college football coaches. Kentucky, you have John Calipari for men's basketball, right there. Alabama, Nick Saban for college football. And Michigan, they hired Jim Harbaugh, which now has turned around their football program. Recruiting right here. That's big. You know, if you want the best players, you gotta put in the most money, right? To travel to find the best players. So if you notice here, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee, all SEC schools, right? The most valuable conference, right there. Top ticket sellers, right? That's another revenue stream that we forget. So you have University of Texas at $63 million, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas A&M, LSU. So you notice the pattern there. The conferences just keep bringing in the money. Now the NCAA is still enforcing the amateurism rule. Okay, so even though, hey, we're all making money, conference commissioners, conference, the presidents, of the NCAA, we're all benefiting from all this commercialization, but the players are not benefiting from this standpoint. They are still enforcing the rules, and the NCAA, this is based on their website. You know, players, their eligibility could get impacted if they're accepting any type of money for playing, whether it's money for playing sports, prize money, if they have issues, they have contact with agents. So you have all these restrictions on the free labor, which are the players. Now, this is going to be the end of part 2 of my video. Right here in part 3, I will talk about the cases. The first case, which is Ed O'Bannon versus the NCAA, regarding name, image, and likeness right there. So